Thank you for the questions. I'm here with the answers. Welcome to our first edition of the Schmidt Storm. Let's get going. The first question is, should Trump lose, will the Republican Party go through a de-Trumping? Will the Republican leaders walk away from Trump? Well, the short answer is nobody knows. Maybe Donald Trump will be the nominee another time. There's only two other people in American history who have been the nominees of their party three times: Henry Clay and William Jennings Bryan. Donald Trump will have lost the popular vote in three elections and the electoral vote in two. But Trumpism is the animating force within the Republican Party that he controls lock, stock, and barrel. So in order to dislodge the king, so to speak, who usually sits in a fortress on top of the hill, someone has to run up the hill and pull him out. So he will have lost the presidency, but not control of the MAGA movement, which controls the Republican Party, which his movement handles and controls completely. So how all of this plays out in the short term is anyone's guess, but in the long term, what will happen is a great fog of amnesia will settle over the Republican Party. Nobody will remember Trump. Everybody will mutually play along with everybody else's amnesia. And this is fundamentally an American thing to do. We are better at amnesia than any other people that have ever been in the history of the world. We can forget atrocities better than anybody. We simply mythologize a pretend version. And that's what's going to happen in the Republican Party. There will be no memory, no trace of Trump over time. There will be no Trump library. Donald Trump will never set foot in the White House again. Donald Trump will never lie in state under the Capitol dome. Donald Trump will be the forgotten man. Donald Trump is President Norma Desmond, who will scream for attention from his patio in Mar-a-Lago to diminishing crowds until there are a handful of retainers left around him, the walls molding, the smell of mildew expanding, the decrepitude everywhere, the elderly, forgotten, vanished Trump holding court in his final redoubt. That is where this ends. The question is what would your storyline be to push back on the narrative that Kamala Harris is a toxic boss? Well, here's what I know about it. Nobody has come forward, no actual person. And this is one of the things that's very broken about the American media. It's something that I've experienced firsthand. If somebody comes forward and says, Kamala Harris did these things, or for example, a group of people come forward and say, Amy Klobuchar did these specific things, and confirm it, which happened. Someone who was terribly abusive to the staff, that has gone through staff at an extraordinary level. Somebody who has great distemper towards their staff, like Nancy Mace. But with Kamala Harris, it's all rumors. There's no actual people that seem to exist who come out and say, she's a terrible boss, or she did these things, or on this occasion, when X happened, she did Y. None of that. It's just this euphemism that she's toxic. Well, no doubt she has exacting standards. It's probably how she became the vice president of the United States, a United States senator, and the attorney general of California. She was the district attorney of San Francisco. She was a prosecuting attorney before that. So she has held jobs that require precision, that require an attention to detail, that require exactitude, competence, ethics, professionalism. She has been an executive in charge of vast government agencies. California, if it were a nation, would be the seventh largest economy in the world. It is a vast nation state with 38 million people, and she was the chief law enforcement officer, the attorney general of the state, running the California Department of Justice. It's a very significant job. So all of this is code language for angry black woman. And so the racial animus that will be directed at her will be sometimes passive aggressive, sometimes more direct, but it will all be rooted in an innuendo around incompetency that doesn't exist, around achievement stripped, that somehow it's DEI, that somehow it's because she dated Willie Brown or Montel Williams. And it is all absurdist fantasy and bullshit. So the best response is to understand at the core the bad faith of the attack, the disingenuousness of it, so that it can be laughed off, scoffed off, and that return fire can be directed at the appropriate source, which is the ego of Donald Trump. And this is the key thing to remember in the fight against Trump. The most delicate flower in all the world is the male ego. And the most delicate flower in all the field of flowers is the Trump flower. The Donald petals are the most fragile of all, striking at his ego. She's better than him. He's weirder than her. And J.D. Vance is way weirder than everybody, is how you win the race. Whoever the election is about loses. Make it about Trump's weirdness. Her excellence speaks for itself. The question is, and it's a good one, frightening one, are there any indications that state and federal officials are preparing for the chaos that MAGA will unleash if the baby Donald loses the election in November? I don't know the answer to that, except to say that there will be chaos and he will lose the election. And once again, he will refuse to concede the election under some concocted, imagined conspiracy theory that will further poison America's faith and belief in democracy, which is why we really should all hope that Vice President Harris's victory is decisive. President Biden won, but by really 44,000 votes across 3 states. We need a bigger victory, a bigger mandate. What's happening right now, what we're witnessing with Kamala Harris's rise, is the simultaneous crushing of the MAGA spirit, because it's all falling apart. Donald Trump does not do well with headwinds, and he has severe headwinds all of a sudden again. And he's going into those headwinds with the anchor dragging, and the anchor brand is J.D. Vance. That's a heavy lead anchor. I'm Steve Schmidt. This is The Warning, and I invite you to subscribe on our Substack, on our YouTube channel. Follow us. Welcome to the community.